it's Teacher Penny, and I am here to tell to you today about unit assessments. These are the classes that we teach every 6 classes. It's every 4 classes in level 1, but in level 2 through up through level 7, we do assessments in every 6 lessons. So when you get to lesson 6 and lesson 12 in the unit, you're going to do an assessment lesson. And so today I'm here to talk about those assessment lessons and how they work, and to help you figure them out, because they are a little crazy sometimes. I'm actually in a VIPKid classroom. This is an assessment that I just finished. You can see over in the over here on that side, it says that the class is finished. This was with my student Peter. He's not on camera now anymore, so I'm just using his classroom to show you this. Um, and I wanted to tell you about unit assessments, how they work, and hopefully stop some of your fear of them. Okay, so a couple of the things with unit assessments: we do unit assessments in lesson 6 and lesson 12 in the units. Lesson 6 is the end of lesson cycle 1, and that is the first assessment, and then the full assessment is in lesson 2. Okay, it's our unit, it's at the end of lesson cycle 2. That's the unit, the lesson 12 assessment. That's the big one for them. That's when they present the project. We'll talk about projects here in just a minute. Okay, so if you see on your lesson code, when you get that booking, if it says something like, I'm going to point to the code up here, but see how this one says MCL4U2 LC1-6. That means that this is we're in level 4, unit 2. This is lesson cycle 1, and it is 6. So it is lesson 6 in here. So this is the first assessment that this student has. Okay, so first thing you're going to do, especially if you're a new teacher, you're going to come into this classroom and go, oh my God, this thing has 50 slides in it. How am I going to finish 50 slides in 25 minutes? First off, don't panic. Unit assessments go really, really quickly. Most of the time, you can finish the entire lesson well within 25 minutes, okay? I have had some assessments that we've done the whole thing, 50, 60 slides in 15, 18 minutes, something like that, okay? And then they're like, oh, okay, now what do I do with the rest of the time, okay? Let me remind you, even if you finish it all within 16, 18 minutes, you cannot leave the classroom until 25 minutes. If you leave the classroom early because you're done, then you could be marked as a no-show, okay? So don't leave the classroom. Stretch it out somehow, okay? Review something, go back and do a slide that they had trouble with, go to a slide at the end that has a blank screen and have them write words or sentences or something, but do not finish your class before 25 minutes. Okay, now first thing, let's go back to the beginning and let's talk about how these assessments are done and how they're put together. These are the same for almost every level. Now remember, in level 1, they're just a little bit different, but for the most part they're pretty much the same as this. Okay, so in level 1, or in all the other levels, you're going to have some kind of game. You can see the game down below. In this case, I have all of these animals. Now at the very beginning of this thing, it talks about, these animals have been caught by a monster. Maybe it's someone has lost their toys, or there's all sorts of different things that that the fish is looking for its scales, and so it has got all sorts of little games in here for it. And then only a hero can help them save the monster. Can you help them? Then it asks, do you want to be Meg or Mike? Now our older kids are kind of like, yeah, whatever, get it over with it. Honestly, with the older kids, level 3 and above, I just kind of flip past this slide. With the younger kids, I let them choose Meg or Mike. Of course, the boys pick Mike, the girls pick Meg. You could do the AR stickers, the AR stickers that we have. So if they choose Mike, and then you say, okay, you be Mike and I'll be Meg, and you can put the AR sticker on you, put the AR Mike on them. cracks them up. I don't leave them on for the whole lesson. I just put them on for a little bit, and then we move on with the lesson. Okay, the AR stickers are lots of fun. So just let them choose their character or skip past that one, doesn't matter, okay? Then you're going to go to level 1. Now, the games are always divided up into these levels. And usually in the first assessment, there are 5 levels. And the second one, there are 6 levels because they are presenting their final project, okay? So what I do with these assessments, and everybody has their own opinion of how to do this, okay? I use this as the actual reward, okay? This is my secondary reward. When we finish each level, they get something. So in this case, they get the bear at the end of level 1. They get the elephant at the end of level 2. So that is their reward. And then I also give a star at the end of each level. So for each level, they get whatever the reward is and a star. So I use this as I use the game as the secondary reward. Now, I usually use Google Slides. So I have a picture over here that I put in that shows a picture of whatever the reward is. That's up to you. You could, if you don't want to use Google Slides, you could print out a copy of this, or like on this one, you could just have a bear and an elephant and a giraffe, or whatever it might be, just something, okay, to go along with it, okay. But Google Slides are a great option to do that with, okay. So this is the game that you do here, and then you just introduce the game to them and you go level 1, okay, and you go to level 1 and then you start whatever the assessment is, okay. So now, how to score the assessments. If you'll look up here on this side where it says add feedback, you click on add feedback and see how the feedback form comes up here on the right, whoops, that side, on the far right side of the screen. And now you can click on each section and look, here are the questions here. The answers to whatever the question is that they're looking for are also here in this assessment. And you are going to grade them as you go through. Now, some people like to, they don't do they don't do the grading as they go through. Some people take notes on it. um, I just do the excuse me, I do it and grade it as we go through. It just seems a lot easier to me. Yes, you're going to be glancing off to the side just a little bit, but I think that's better than looking down to write notes, okay? Some people have really been dinged by parents for not paying attention in class because they were looking down to write notes, okay? So I just grade it right as we go along. You are going to grade each question with either a 0, a 1, or a 2. A 0 is they cannot do it at all. Number 1, sometimes it says that they're able to do it with help. And then the 2 is they can do it independently. However, in those lower levels, particularly the lower levels of level 2, sometimes they can get full credit if they do it with help. So be sure that you read the criterion in the grading, because maybe in those lower levels they only have to repeat it. They don't have to read it independently. They only have to repeat it after you, or they only have to circle something or whatever it is. So be careful that you're not grading too harshly, particularly in those lower levels, because it for those little bitty kids, they don't expect them to read. They can't read yet. Okay, all they're doing is repeating after you. So make sure that you are grading it according to the criterion, not they can read this perfectly on their own. No, not necessarily. That might not be the criterion for it. So just follow along as you go through the slides and answer the questions as you go through them. When you get to the end of each section, okay, and you can see how we did on this one, and we answered some questions. They get to the end of that section, and yay, you get a bear. And I put up a picture of a bear here, and then I gave the star over here on the far left side, okay? And then we went to the next section, and we did everything with math, and then on and on and on we went. all the way through the assessment. Once we got to the end of the assessment, and see how here the game map now has the bear here on level 1. When we get to level 2, the elephant would show up here and all the way through. So that by the end of the lesson, when we got to level 5 and we finished level 5, they had all 5 of their stars, and this little map was filled in with all 5 of the pictures of the animals. Okay, so it might be pictures of animals, it might be toys, it just depends on whatever your game theme is in your class. Okay, so the assessments are very easy to do that way. As I said, some of these slides, if you're worried about timing, some of these slides you're literally only going to spend a couple of seconds on. When you get to this one, yay, good job, you got a bear, you get a star, woohoo, level 2. Okay, see how quickly that goes? Okay, and then you say, yay, level 2, and then you go to the very next thing. Okay, so that's how quickly all of these assessment slides go. Don't panic if you have 50, 60 slides in there. It's okay. They're going to go very, very quickly. Okay, now one thing I do want, let's look at the very end on the, let me go back here. There we go. Okay. On the final projects. Okay. We have final projects that they present at the end of each unit. So in lesson 12 in each unit. Now, if you're doing a level 1, there are no final projects in level 1. Okay, those are all done. They're just nothing in level 1. Okay, in level 2, they only have one choice. You just present to them, this is your final project. It's due in lesson 12. That's it. Okay, and go over each one of those. So the projects are presented in lesson 5, in lesson 6, and in lesson 11, and then they are presented in lesson 12. The student is supposed to have it in lesson 12. So if you're in level 2, they get that one choice of the project, and then they present it in lesson 12. The very first thing, and I don't have this, this is a lesson, the first assessment, the lesson 6 assessment. But in when you're grading the projects, there's going to be over here in the grading assessment, there will be a section for the final project for you to grade it. It has 2 questions in it. They just ask if it has been presented well, if it's organized and neat, and if the student can explain it, all that stuff. If my student has done anything at all for the project, I give them full credit for it. Okay, I give them the 2 points for the first and the second question. If they have not finished the project before they get to class, then if we have time, I'll skip over that first unit, that first little section. And then if we have time at the end of class, I will go back and I will go to these options, show them the options, and then we'll choose one of the ones that would be the simplest thing to do. Then I'm going to skip all the way to the end of the lesson. And remember that way down there in the bottom left of the slides, you can just type in the number of the lesson. I'm going to skip all the way into the last slide, which is usually a blank slide, and we will draw a simple version of the project on that last thing. And then I will give them half points. Okay, I'll give them the number 1, okay, the score 1 for it if we can complete the project there at the end of it. Okay, but remember that you're going to give them these options they've gone over it in unit 5, they've gone over it or lesson 5, they've gone over it in lesson 6, they've gone over it in lesson 11, and so they've had plenty of warning. It's also in their workbook that they're supposed to do. They've had plenty of warning that they're supposed to do this project. They should know about doing this project. Okay, but then but most of the time, I will tell you, at least half the time, my students don't have their projects. Okay, no matter how much I go over, and I put it in feedback too. Feedback for lesson 5, feedback for lesson 6, and feedback for lesson 12. I put in there, Johnny has a project to do in lesson 12, and be sure and have that completed for lesson 12. And then I say, and then I'll do it, and I'll even list out, these are the projects. Okay, it's in the workbook. please make sure that they complete one of these. Please help them choose one and complete. Okay, you get the idea all the way through there. I'm telling them about the project. I'm telling them, reminding them about it, and then they still don't show up to the class with it. Okay, so if we have time at the end of class, we will go back and we'll go to that blank screen at the end and do it. If not, then oh well, then they get zeros on it. And then you put into the feedback, little Johnny did not have his project that was due today, and so I was not able to give points for that. Please make sure that he has his project due in the next unit for lesson 12. Okay, put that into feedback so that they know why that score is a little bit lower on that. Now, as far as let me bounce back over here to the options here. If you're in unit 3, 4, 5, 6, then you're going to have these 3 options for them, and go over each one of them. Yes, they're not going to understand all the words, but go over them with them in lesson 5 and lesson 6 to help them see the options, help them choose one. And then it has a little bit more detailed things, and it will have an example of each one in the slides after this. So you go over each one and show them all of the options that they have and let them choose one. Okay, but again, don't be surprised if they don't have it ready. But see, here's that blank screen at the very end of the lesson, so you can use this one to complete their project if they don't have it completed. When you are scoring the slides, and you're scoring each one of giving them the score for each of the questions, be generous. Okay, sometimes they don't get it the first time, but they will say it after you help them a little bit. They'll say it then. Okay, this is an extracurricular class. It's extra. It is on top of all the schoolwork that they're already doing and all the homework that they're doing. I don't want to add I am a horrible person, I'm a terrible student onto the student. So I am very, very generous in the way I score these. Now, different people are going to be different ways. I'm pretty generous. Now, here's the thing. If you get mom sitting over here or dad sitting over here whispering all of the answers to them, and they're just mom says it and then the kid says it, some people would grade down for that. My philosophy is, if it comes out of the kid's mouth, they get full credit for it. Okay, even if mom is telling them the answer, yeah, mom knows that they're cheating. Okay, even if the parents are giving them the answer, I'm going to give them full credit if the student says it out of their mouth. Okay, now I might put in feedback, I really think that little Johnny is capable of doing this on his own, so let's let him choose, or let's let him try to answer on his own before we jump in to help him too quickly. I know you want him to do well, but let's let him think of the answer and say it first before we jump in too quickly to help him. I think he can do it. Sometimes you just have to remind mom, and she goes, okay. Yeah. So I had that with a student the other day. She was trying to help him with every little answer, and I'm like, okay, Johnny's turn. And it was time. I let Johnny read it. Lo and behold, the child could read everything on the page. And mom learned then, well, maybe he doesn't need as much as my help. Okay, so these are how you're going to do these assessment lessons, and I hope that has helped you out. I hope you understand a little bit more about assessments, or UAs as we call them. I hope you've learned more about UAs and you are ready to do one of those. And it's amazing. Sometimes we get booked for a UA. In fact, a lot of brand new teachers will get booked for a UA and as their very first class, and they just panic. But don't panic. You can be ready for it. You're going to do a great job at these UAs. And I love UAs. I think they're the best classes. They're the easiest classes to teach because they're quick. They move really quickly through there, and the kids understand it. You're not teaching new stuff, okay, this time. You're just reviewing what they've already learned, okay? So you're going to review it. And one other thing on this, in level 2, they now have, I think it's like the first 6 units of level 2. They do a review for the first half of the lesson, and then the actual assessment is the last half of the lesson. And it gets really confusing because the feedback grading thing is not matching the slides because you don't realize that you're not in the actual assessment yet. Okay, so if you have an assessment in those lower levels of level 2, be sure and kind of flip through the slides so that you see, okay, that's where the assessment begins, or it'll completely mess with you. You're like, this is not matching up. These answers are not matching up with what's here. Okay, and what it's designed as is you review everything first and then you do the assessment. Okay, again, if you have extra time at the end, go back and review something if you need to, but make sure that as I said, if it comes out of the kid's mouth, even if it's the second or third try, I give them complete credit for it. So that's up to you. Now, on your feedback, at the end of the lesson, you are going to give your parents feedback. This feedback goes directly to the parents, and you're going to talk about all of the things that they did. Make it very positive, okay? Very, very positive. Maybe they did great on this. Maybe even if they didn't do so well, you're going to be very positive, very praise. Give them lots and lots of praise for that. But then if there's something that they just bombed, can you word it in a way that is like he needs to work on, or he should review, or something like that? But just go through it and talk about what they did really well on. Okay, so if they did really well reading the phonics but not so great on reading, then you would say he is a great phonics reader and he read those little 3-letter words perfectly. He needed a little support from the teacher. That means I had to read it for him, okay? He needed a little support from the teacher reading the story, okay? But that's positive, okay? He just needed a little support, okay? So just post it in that way. Now, if you've got a student that just bombs it completely, don't be afraid to be honest, but you can say it with kindness. Okay, so if the child is really really struggling, that's when you say, Johnny had a very difficult time with today's assessment. But then sugar sandwich. Okay, he did well on this. He really struggled on this. He did well on this. Okay, struggled is a good word instead of he couldn't do it. Okay, so make it a sugar sandwich. Talk about something that he did well, even if he just circled something. Okay, talk about something that he did well, and then talk about what he needs to work on practice. Many times at assessments, this is when we would say to them, you may consider moving them back to an earlier level. Let me just say that very, very seldom will a parent follow that. It is ultimately up to the parent whether they move them back or not. Okay, that is completely a parent decision. All of the teachers could be saying this student is in level 5 and they should be in level 2. Every teacher could be saying that. The LP could agree with it. Everything, unless those parents say move them back, they are not going to move back, because the parents see that as a sign of failure and of losing face, and so they're not going to do that. They're not going to admit defeat, even though the child is completely lost here. So if you have a child like that is obviously in a level that is too high for them, that they cannot do, I'm sorry, but most of the time they're not going to move them back. What I would tell you then is to break it down to their level to try to catch them up. Okay, and you go back, and if they're still struggling with phonics, then you don't worry about what the level is that they're actually teaching. Teach them the phonics that they need to know, because they're not going to move forward until they learn those basics. Okay, you can do things like suggest extra courses. Maybe this child would do well with a phonics class, or a proper pronunciation class, or a leveled reading class, or something like that. You can suggest some of those supplemental courses to them. Now, one thing also in the UA, there is no place to leave a message for a learning partner. So you can only leave messages for the parents here. If you feel like there's something that really needs to be addressed by the learning partner, you're going to have to send that in as a ticket. So go to the portal and click on support, contact support, and then look under there. I think there's something about teaching, and then suggestions to the LP or something. I don't remember the exact things, but you're going to have to send a ticket in to get a message to the LP about that. Okay, I hope this clears up any of the questions that you have about unit assessments, UAs, and helps you with that. If you are looking for a group, a good Facebook group to support you and answer questions, please be sure and join my Facebook group. And I'm going to put the link to it here down here in YouTube as well as here on the screen. It is the Facebook group VIPKid Teachers Hired. Okay, and also be sure and look on my website, which is hellopennydavis.com. There is a whole section there for hired teachers that goes through lots of these basic things like unit assessments and trial lessons and feedback and how to cancel a class, and all of that kind of fun stuff is all explained in the section on hired teachers, for hired teachers. So please use those as support for you while you're in your teaching journey. I appreciate you watching today. Be sure and give me a like and a subscribe here on YouTube so that I can know that you've watched and this has been a help to you. Thanks so much. Bye-bye.